Hello. Let me start this journey by saying something you probably already know, but may have forgotten at some point in your life. You are the protagonist of your own story. It sounds obvious, right? But believe me, many of us spend so much time feeling like extras that we forget our leading role. I know this feeling well. For many years, I was that guy who waited for life to get better on its own, as if happiness and success would be delivered to my door with free shipping and everything. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. In fact, the happiness delivery guy never showed up, and my life remained stagnant, day after day, year after year. Until one day, after a series of hilarious and somewhat embarrassing events, which I promised to tell you more about later, I realized that nothing was going to change unless I did something. And that's when everything started to change. This book is about that change, about how I broke free from inertia and began building the life I always wanted. No, I didn't become a superhero or an overnight personal development guru. I'm still an ordinary human being who makes mistakes and learns from them. But the big difference is that now I am in motion. And that's exactly what I want to share with you. The importance of getting moving and being the protagonist of your own story. Get ready for a light, humorous read that, I hope, is full of meaningful insights that will inspire you to break free from inertia and start living the life you've always dreamed of. So, how did all this begin? Let's go back a few years to a time when my biggest accomplishment of the day was choosing a new TV series to binge watch. I'd wake up, have my coffee, and soon find myself lost among the countless Netflix options. It was as if each episode was an excuse to avoid facing the reality that my life was, well, boring. One day, while watching one of these series, a character said something that caught me by surprise. "What are you waiting for? Life won't wait for you." I laughed at the irony, but it stuck in my head. Was I waiting for a divine intervention? A stroke of luck? At that moment, I realized that if I wanted to see changes, I had to be the agent of those changes. That's when I decided to do something radical, step out of my comfort zone. And when I say radical, don't think of climbing Everest or skydiving. My first action was much simpler. I decided to take a walk in the park. Yes, you read that right. I, who barely left the couch, decided to walk. At first, it seemed like a Herculean task. My feet hurt, the sun felt hotter than ever, and I swore every passerby could smell my despair. But something curious happened. By the end of the walk, I felt good. Not just physically, but mentally. It was as if, for a brief moment, I had taken control of my life. And so my journey began. Small steps, small actions. Each one taking me a little further from inertia and a little closer to the life I wanted to live. I realized I didn't need to make grand heroic gestures to change. True transformation came from daily small actions. While walking in a park, I started noticing things that had previously gone unnoticed. A stranger's smile, the sound of birds, the freshness of the wind on my face. It was as if I were waking up from a long sleep. And this awakening made me see that life is happening now, and I could be the protagonist of it. I decided to apply this mentality to other areas of my life. At work, instead of just completing my tasks, I began looking for ways to make a difference. At home, instead of isolating myself, I sought to connect more with family and friends. Each small action contributed to a greater sense of fulfillment and purpose. Of course, not everything was easy. There were days I wanted to give up when the old inertia seemed to pull me back to the couch. But I persisted because I knew the effort was worth it. Every challenge overcome was a victory, and each victory motivated me to keep going. The big lesson I learned along this journey is that life won't wait for us. If we want to see changes, we need to be the change. We can't expect things to fall from the sky or someone to save us. We need to take responsibility for our lives and act. This book is a celebration of this journey. It is an invitation for you to also break free from inertia and get moving. No matter where you are now or how stuck you feel. What matters is taking the first step, no matter how small. Throughout the next chapters, I will share more of my experiences, practical tips, and reflections that help me transform my life. I hope they inspire you to do the same. After all, you are the protagonist of your story, and it's time to start living it fully. Chapter 1. A better life doesn't fall from the sky. I've always had a recurring fantasy. I imagined that one day I would wake up and magically, my life would be perfect. I'd have an incredible house, a sports car, a dream job, and perfect health. It was as if I were waiting for a magic lamp genie to appear and grant all my wishes. Spoiler, that never happened. For many years, I kept waiting for that magical moment. I believed that eventually luck would smile on me and everything would resolve itself. However, reality was quite different. I found myself in a mediocre job, living in an apartment I could barely afford, and feeling that my life was on pause while the world moved on. I remember a specific day. I was sitting on the couch, watching one of those TV shows where someone wins a fortune unexpectedly. There I was, with a bag of chips in hand, convinced that with a bit of luck, that could be me. But no. The most I won was a stomach ache from eating too much. It was then that I realized I was making a fundamental mistake. I was waiting for life to get better on its own, without doing anything about it. The harsh truth is that a better life doesn't fall from the sky. If I wanted to see changes, I needed to act. I had to be proactive, take the reins of my destiny, and let go of the fantasy that things would simply improve on their own. That's when I had a transformative conversation with an old friend, someone I deeply respected. He looked me in the eye and said, "Man, you need to stop blaming the world for your problems. The only person responsible for your life is you. If something isn't working, only you can change it." Those words hit me hard. I had never stopped to think about it that way. I always saw myself as a victim of circumstances, but never as the agent of my own changes. It was a shock, but a necessary one. I realized that as long as I continued blaming others, I would never take control of my life. I then decided to do an honest and painful self-analysis. I looked at my life and asked myself, how did I get here? What were my choices and attitudes that brought me to this situation? It was a difficult exercise, but extremely revealing. I realized that many of my frustrations were directly the result of my own decisions, or lack thereof. What did I really want? What were my dreams, desires, and goals? I realized that, until then, I had lived without a clear purpose. I was simply letting life take me, like a leaf in the wind. It was time to change that. I decided to start small. One of the first steps was to improve my health. Instead of continuing to eat chips on the couch, I started making small changes in my diet and incorporated physical exercise into my routine. And I'll tell you, at first, it was hilarious. I felt like a fish out of water at the gym, trying to figure out how to use those strange machines. Once, I almost decapitated myself with a barbell because I didn't know I needed a spotter. But over time, I got the hang of it and started feeling better, more energized, and confident. Another area that needed attention was my professional life. I was stuck in a job that didn't satisfy me, but did nothing to change that. I decided to invest in my education, take courses, and learn new skills. It wasn't easy to go back to studying after so long, and there were times I wanted to give up. But I persisted because I knew it was necessary to improve my situation. And, of course, I can't forget to mention the countless job interviews I went through. Some of them were real comedy shows. In one interview, I got so nervous that I spilled coffee on the recruiter's shirt. In another, I completely forgot the company's name and spent the entire interview trying to cover up my embarrassment. But each of these experiences taught me something, and over time, I landed a position that truly satisfied me. I think one of the most transformative moments was when I started getting involved in activities I was truly passionate about. I had always had a secret desire to write, but never dedicated time to it. I decided to start a blog and share my experiences and learnings. At first, my texts were only read by my mother and a few friends, but gradually, I gained a small audience. Writing gave me a sense of purpose and fulfillment that I had never experienced before. During this journey, I learned that having a support network is crucial. My friends and family were fundamental in motivating me and keeping me on the right track. They encouraged me to keep going when I doubted myself and celebrated every little victory with me. I realized that although change mainly depends on us, having people who support us makes all the difference. Another important aspect was learning to deal with failures. Not everything I tried worked out the first time. There were many stumbles, mistakes, and moments of frustration. But each failure taught me something valuable and prepared me for the next challenge. I learned to see obstacles not as insurmountable barriers, but as opportunities for growth. It was a gradual and continuous process. There was no magical overnight transformation. Each small action, each step taken in the right direction, contributed to building a better life. And the more I moved, the clearer it became that I had the power to change my reality. Life wasn't waiting for me. I needed to meet it halfway. If you feel stuck, if you believe life isn't going in the direction you want, I want you to know that you have the power to change that. You don't need to wait for something magical to happen. Start small, but start. Define your goals, take small daily actions, and move in the direction you want. Remember, a better life doesn't fall from the sky. It is built with effort, action, and determination. And above all, it is built by you. So stop waiting and start acting. Your life is in your hands, and you are the protagonist of this story. Chapter 2. Accept responsibility. When I was a child, there was always someone to blame. If I got a bad grade in school, it was the teacher's fault for not explaining well. If I wasn't picked for the football team, it was because the other kids didn't like me. And so, I grew up with the mentality that the blame for my frustrations and failures always lay with others. But that mentality didn't get me anywhere. I remember a specific phase in my life when everything seemed to go wrong. My job was monotonous, my friendships were falling apart, and I felt lost. I spent hours complaining about life, lamenting my luck, and envying those who seemed to have everything under control. I felt like a victim of the universe, thinking everyone was against me. I always complained about not being promoted. But instead of looking to improve my skills or take the initiative, I just did the bare minimum and waited for recognition to come automatically. In my personal relationships, I complained that friends didn't reach out, but I rarely took the initiative to stay in touch. Accepting responsibility was the first step toward change. Realizing that I had control over my life gave me a sense of power I had never experienced before. I began to understand that if I wanted to see changes, I needed to act accordingly. One of the first areas where I applied this new mentality was my health. For years, I complained about being overweight and feeling constantly tired. But my routine was sedentary, and my diet was a disaster. I decided it was time to take responsibility for my health. I started exercising regularly and making healthier food choices. It wasn't easy, and there were many moments of temptation and slip-ups, but the feeling of being in control of my own health was incredibly motivating. Another example was my professional life. Instead of continuing to complain about the lack of opportunities, I began actively seeking ways to improve my skills and resume. I took online courses, attended workshops, and even sought mentorship from more experienced colleagues. The change didn't happen overnight, but gradually, I started seeing results. I got a promotion and, more importantly, began feeling more confident and fulfilled in my job. Accepting responsibility also had a profound impact on my personal relationships. I realized that to have true friends, I needed to be a true friend. I began taking the initiative to schedule meetups, call to check in on people, and be more present in the lives of my friends and family. The difference was enormous. Relationships strengthened, and I started feeling more connected and supported. Of course, this journey of accepting responsibility wasn't without challenges. There were moments when I wanted to revert to the old pattern of blaming others and playing the victim. But each time those thoughts arose, I remember my friend's words, "The only person responsible for your life is you." This helped me stay focused and continue on the path of change. One of the most important lessons I learned was that accepting responsibility doesn't mean being hard on yourself. On the contrary, it's an act of empowerment. It's recognizing that, regardless of what happened in the past, you have the power to change your future. It's understanding that your choices matter and that you have control over your actions and reactions. Today, I look back and see how much my life has changed since I started accepting responsibility for it. And it's not just in the big things. It's in the small daily actions that make a difference. Waking up early to go to the gym, dedicating time to read and learn something new, being present for those I love. All these small actions add up to create a fuller and more meaningful life. If I could give advice to someone feeling stuck and lost, it would be this: accept responsibility for your life. Don't wait for things to change on their own. Don't expect others to do it for you. Look at yourself, recognize your choices, and take control of your destiny. It's not an easy path, but it's an incredibly rewarding one. And remember, responsibility is not a burden, but a freedom. The freedom to shape your own life, make your own choices, and live on your own terms. When you take responsibility, you become the protagonist of your own story, and that's something powerful and transformative. So, what will your choice be today? Continue waiting for life to change on its own, or take control and be the agent of your own transformation. The decision is yours, and the change starts now. Because, in the end, life is what you make of it, and you have the power to make it something incredible. Chapter 3. Nothing will happen if you don't move. After accepting responsibility for my life and realizing I had the power to change my reality, I faced the harsh truth. Nothing would happen if I didn't move. Change is not something that occurs while you sit on the couch watching TV, waiting for the world around you to magically change. It requires continuous action, even if it's in small steps. This realization led me to adopt a simple but powerful mantra. Nothing will happen if you don't move. The first time I truly understood the power of continuous action was when I decided to improve my health. I started with small daily walks in the park. At first, these walks seemed insignificant. My feet hurt, I sweated profusely, and each step felt like a monumental effort. But instead of giving up, I kept going. Every day, I put on my sneakers and went for a walk, regardless of the weather or my mood. Over time, I noticed something amazing. Those small walks were turning into a habit. And more than that, they started producing visible changes. I felt more energized, my mood improved, and gradually, I began losing weight. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but each step contributed to a bigger change. This experience taught me that consistency is key. Small daily actions, no matter how insignificant they seem, add up over time and produce great results. It's like planting a tree. You don't see the growth immediately, but over time, the tree grows and becomes strong. I decided to apply this mentality to other areas of my life. At work, I started dedicating a few minutes every day to learn something new. I enrolled in online courses, read articles, and watched educational videos. I didn't worry about spending hours studying. Instead, I made small daily progress. Over time, these small actions accumulated, and I became more competent and confident in my work. This not only improved my performance, but also opened doors to new opportunities. Another example was when I decided to improve my personal relationships. Instead of waiting for others to make the first move, I started taking the initiative. I sent messages to friends and family, scheduled meetups, and dedicated time to be present. Small gestures like a phone call or a text message made a huge difference. Gradually, my relationships became deeper and more meaningful. One of the most valuable lessons I learned was that we don't need to wait for a great moment of inspiration or a perfect opportunity to act. Action can start now with what we have and where we are. Often, we become paralyzed waiting for the ideal moment, but the truth is, there is no perfect moment. Perfection is the enemy of action. If we wait until all conditions are ideal, we'll never start. There were days when motivation was low, and the temptation to procrastinate was strong. But even on those days, I forced myself to take at least one small step in the right direction. I remember a particularly difficult day at work, where nothing seemed to go right. The desire to give up was great, but instead of giving in, I decided to focus on a small task that I could complete. The satisfaction of completing that task gave me the boost I needed to continue. Continuous action doesn't mean doing big things all the time. Often, it's the small things that make the biggest difference. If you want to write a book, for example, start by writing 1 page a day. It may seem small, but in a year, you'll have 365 pages, enough material for a complete book. If you want to learn a new skill, dedicate a few minutes each day to practice. Consistency is what leads to progress. Another important aspect is self-compassion. It's normal to fail, make mistakes, and have bad days. The important thing is not to let these moments derail you. When things don't go as planned, instead of blaming ourselves, we should learn from our mistakes and keep moving forward. Continuous action is about persistence and resilience. To maintain consistency, I developed some strategies that proved effective. One was establishing daily routines. Turning actions into daily habits makes it easier to maintain them, even when motivation is low. For example, exercising every morning right after waking up became a natural part of my day. This eliminated the need to decide each day whether I would exercise or not. Another strategy was setting clear and measurable goals. Vaguely defined goals are hard to follow and track. Instead of saying, I want to be healthier, I set specific goals like walk 30 minutes every day or eat 5 servings of vegetables a day. Clear goals provide a defined path to follow and allow progress to be measured. I also learned to celebrate small victories. Each small achievement is a step in the right direction and deserves to be recognized. Celebrating these victories kept me motivated and reminded me of the progress I was making. Even something as simple as completing a week of daily walks was a reason to celebrate. One of my favorite stories about the importance of continuous action involves an attempt to learn to play the guitar. I've always admired musicians and dreamed of playing an instrument, but never had the patience to learn. I decided to change that and started dedicating 15 minutes every day to practice. In the first few months, my progress was slow and frustrating. But I kept practicing day after day. After a year, I realized I had learned to play several songs and that my skill level had improved significantly. Those 15 daily minutes, which initially seemed so insignificant, turned into a skill I had always wanted to have. Nothing will happen if you don't move. This phrase became a mantra for me, a constant reminder that action is necessary for any kind of change. Whatever your goal, improving your health, advancing in your career, strengthening relationships, or developing new skills, start now. Take the first step, no matter how small, and keep moving. Consistency and continuous action are the keys to transforming your dreams into reality. So if you're waiting for a sign to start, consider this book and my stories as that sign. Don't wait any longer. Life is too short to stand still, waiting for things to happen. Move, do something every day that brings you closer to your goals. Each small step counts, and over time you'll see the big changes these small steps can bring. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and it's time for you to take yours. Chapter 4. Turn your dreams into goals. Sometimes, in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we set our dreams aside, believing they are impossible or that we don't have time to pursue them. However, it's essential to bring those dreams to life and turn them into clear and achievable goals. After all, it's these dreams that motivate us to keep moving and striving for a better life. I remember when I started reflecting on my own dreams. I was in a moment of pause after months of continuous actions and small changes. Sitting on the same park bench where many epiphanies had occurred, I asked myself, what do I really want in life? It was a simple but powerful question. And to my surprise, the answers didn't come immediately. I realized that, for a long time, my dreams had been buried under layers of routines and daily responsibilities. I decided to dedicate time to exploring my deepest desires. I bought a new notebook and began writing down everything that came to mind, without censorship. Things like travel the world, write a book, learn to play the piano, have a house in the countryside emerged on the first pages. It didn't matter if they seemed big or small, possible or impossible. The important thing was to get them out of my mind and onto paper. Doing this gave me a sense of relief and excitement. Seeing my dreams written down gave them shape and substance. They were no longer vague thoughts, but something concrete I could see and touch. And more than that, I realized that many of these dreams were achievable if I turned them into clear and tangible goals. To do this, I developed a process of reflection that helped me bring my dreams to life. First, I defined what each dream meant to me. For example, traveling the world seemed too broad. So I broke this dream down into smaller parts like visit Europe, explore Asia, and discover South America. This made the dream more manageable and less intimidating. Next, I asked myself why these dreams were important. This helped me understand the motivation behind each desire. Traveling, for me, meant freedom, adventure, and learning. Writing a book was a way to share my experiences and inspire others. Learning to play the piano represented a personal challenge and a way to express creativity. With these insights, I began to turn dreams into specific goals. For each dream, I set clear, time-bound targets. For example, to visit Europe, I determined which countries I wanted to visit, how long I planned to stay in each, and how much money I needed to save. Additionally, I established a timeline for achieving these goals, breaking the process down into smaller and more manageable steps. At this point, I realized the importance of being realistic and flexible. I knew I couldn't achieve all my dreams at once, so I prioritized those that were most important to me at the moment. I also accepted that the path to achieving these goals might change, and that I would need to adapt to circumstances. Another crucial aspect was creating an action plan. Without a plan, goals remain mere intentions. I decided to do something daily that would bring me closer to my goals. To save money for the trip, for example, I started cutting unnecessary expenses and looking for ways to increase my income. To write a book, I set a daily word count goal and reserved specific time each day to write. During this process, I realized the importance of monitoring my progress and celebrating small victories. Every time I saved a significant amount or completed a chapter of the book, I celebrated in some way. These celebrations kept me motivated and reminded me that I was on the right track. The journey to turn dreams into tangible goals is not linear. There will be challenges, detours, and moments of doubt. I remember several times when I thought about giving up, when obstacles seemed insurmountable. But every time that happened, I went back to my dream notebook and reviewed my motivations and plans. This renewed my determination and reminded me why I started. If you're feeling stuck or lost, I invite you to do this reflection exercise. Grab a notebook, find a quiet place, and start writing down your dreams. Don't worry if they seem unattainable or silly. The important thing is to give them shape and start turning them into goals. Ask yourself why these dreams are important and how they can be broken down into smaller, more manageable parts. Set clear goals with deadlines and specific steps. Create an action plan and commit to doing something every day that brings you closer to your goals. Monitor your progress and celebrate each small victory. Remember, life is a series of small steps. Each action, no matter how small, counts. And the sum of these actions is what leads us to realize our dreams. Nothing will happen if you don't move, but when you start moving, even if slowly, amazing things begin to happen. Turning dreams into tangible goals is a continuous journey. It's about being in constant motion, adapting to changes, and staying focused on what really matters. By doing this, you not only achieve your dreams, but also discover more about yourself and what you are capable of achieving. So grab that notebook, start writing, and get ready to turn your dreams into reality. The journey may be long and full of challenges, but each step taken is a step closer to living the life you've always dreamed of. And remember, you are the protagonist of this story, and the power to change is in your hands. Chapter 5. Break your goals into smaller targets. After reflecting on my dreams and turning them into tangible goals, I realized there was still a big challenge ahead: the magnitude of these goals. Sometimes they seemed so big and distant that I didn't know where to start. That's when I discovered the importance of breaking these big goals into smaller, manageable targets. This approach not only made the process easier, but also made everything less intimidating and more achievable. I vividly remember the feeling of being overwhelmed when looking at my goal of writing a book. I had the idea and knew what I wanted to write about, but the thought of completing an entire book paralyzed me. It seemed like an impossible task. That's when I decided to break this big goal into small targets. The first target I set was simple: write 1 page a day. This didn't seem as daunting as writing an entire book. 1 page a day was something I could do, even on the busiest days. And so I began 1 page at a time. By the end of a month, I had 30 pages. In 3 months, 90. And eventually, I completed the first draft of my book. This approach worked so well that I started applying it to other goals. For example, I wanted to save money for a trip to Europe. The total amount needed seemed exorbitant, but by breaking it down into monthly savings targets, it became much more manageable. Instead of trying to save a large sum at once, I committed to saving a portion of my salary every month. And gradually, I reached my goal. Breaking big goals into smaller targets has several advantages. First, it reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed. When we look at a big, complex goal, it's easy to feel we won't be able to achieve it. However, by focusing on one small target at a time, we gain confidence and momentum. Another advantage is that smaller targets allow us to measure progress more effectively. Each small target achieved is a step in the right direction and gives us a sense of accomplishment. These small victories are motivating and encourage us to keep going. I remember when I decided to learn to play the piano. I wanted to be able to play complex pieces, but initially, even reading sheet music was a challenge. I broke my goal into smaller targets. First, learn the notes, then practice scales. Next, play simple songs, and finally progress to more complex pieces. Each step was a learning experience, and completing each small target boosted my confidence. Gradually, the goal of playing the piano no longer seemed impossible. These experiences taught me that the key to achieving big goals lies in patience and consistency. Instead of expecting immediate results, it's important to focus on daily progress. This is something you can apply in any area of your life, be it professional, personal, or academic. For example, if your goal is to become a marathon runner, don't start by trying to run 42 kilometers at once. Break that goal into smaller targets. First, run 1 kilometer, then 2, and so on. Each target achieved will make you feel more prepared and confident for the next challenge. Another example is learning a new language. Instead of trying to master everything at once, start with smaller targets like learning 10 new words a day, practicing verb conjugations, or dedicating 15 minutes a day to conversation. Over time, these small targets add up, and you'll notice significant progress. The same logic applies to professional projects. If you have a big project at work, break it down into smaller parts. Set deadlines for each stage and focus on completing one task at a time. This makes the project more manageable and less stressful. Breaking goals into smaller targets also helps identify and overcome obstacles. When you work on small targets, it's easier to notice where you're encountering difficulties and adjust your approach. If something isn't working, you can correct the course before getting too far off track from your goal. Throughout this journey, it's important to remember to be flexible and adaptable. Things won't always go as planned. There will be setbacks and moments of frustration. But by staying focused on your small targets, you can adjust your strategies and keep moving forward. I'll share a story that illustrates this point well. When I decided to write my second book, I was determined to apply everything I had learned from the first. I set daily writing targets and a detailed schedule. However, in the middle of the process, I faced a series of personal challenges that affected my work pace. Initially, I felt discouraged, but I decided to adjust my targets. Instead of 1 page a day, I reduced it to half a page. I maintained consistency, even at a slower pace, and eventually completed the book. This experience reinforced the importance of being flexible and adjusting targets as needed. The important thing is to keep moving in the direction of your goal, even if in small steps. If you, the reader, feel intimidated by your big goals, I invite you to adopt this approach. Take a goal you want to achieve and break it into small targets. It doesn't need to be complicated. Start with something simple and achievable. Set a plan, define deadlines, and celebrate each small victory along the way. Remember, great achievements are the result of small, consistent actions. Each step, no matter how small, is an advance towards your goal. Don't underestimate the power of small targets. They are the building blocks that, together, create great achievements. Chapter 6. Create an action plan. After learning the importance of breaking big goals into smaller, manageable targets, it's time to take the next crucial step, creating a detailed action plan to achieve those targets. An action plan is like a map guiding you along the way, helping maintain focus and direction. Without it, even the best goals can get lost in the chaos of daily life. And that's exactly what I learned when I began organizing my life more structured. It all started when I decided to improve my health. I was already walking regularly, but knew I needed more than that. I wanted to adopt a healthier diet, start strength training, and improve my sleep quality. I had my targets, but without an action plan, they seemed to float in the air like balloons with no destination. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down all my health goals. Each one was broken down into smaller steps. For example, to adopt a healthier diet, my first step was to research and learn about nutrition. I spent a week reading books and articles, watching videos, and consulting experts. The next step was to make a shopping list with healthy foods and eliminate unhealthy items from my pantry. Then, I planned my meals for the week and started cooking at home instead of eating out. This may seem simple, but the difference between having a vague idea and having a detailed plan is huge. Each small step was clear and specific, and I knew exactly what I needed to do each day. This clarity gave me a sense of purpose and direction I had never experienced before. When you're creating your action plan, it's important to be realistic about the time and resources needed for each step. There's no point planning to change your diet completely in a week if you know you have commitments that will take up much of your time. Be honest with yourself and set deadlines you can meet. Another crucial point is flexibility. Life rarely follows a perfect plan. There will be unforeseen events and obstacles along the way, and it's important to be prepared to adjust your plan as needed. I remember a time when I was following my exercise plan rigorously, but a knee injury forced me to stop. Instead of abandoning my goal of improving my health, I adjusted my plan to include low-impact exercises and focus more on nutrition until I could return to regular training. Let's talk about another example. When I decided to write my second book, I knew I wanted to write about my life experiences and how to turn them into practical lessons for readers. My goal was clear, but without a plan, It was easy to get lost in the magnitude of the task. So I began drafting a detailed action plan. First, I defined the scope of the book, how many chapters it would have, which topics would be covered in each chapter, and what the tone and style of the writing would be. I broke each chapter into smaller sections and set daily writing targets. I also reserved time for research and revision. Each day had a specific goal, whether writing 500 words, reviewing a chapter, or researching a relevant topic. This helped me maintain focus and avoid procrastination. When you have a clear plan, it's easier to start working because you know exactly what you need to do. There's no room for hesitation or doubt. Creating an action plan also helped me identify and overcome potential obstacles. For example, I knew I sometimes got easily distracted, so I created a distraction-free work environment and set specific times for writing. I also rewarded myself for achieving small targets, which kept me motivated along the way. A practical tool I used was creating a goal calendar. I placed all my targets and steps in a calendar with specific deadlines for each one. This allowed me to visualize the entire process and track my progress. Each step completed was marked on the calendar, giving me a sense of accomplishment and encouraging me to keep going. Another useful technique was using daily task lists. Every night before going to bed, I made a list of the tasks I needed to complete the next day. These lists were based on my overall action plan but focused on specific, achievable tasks for the day. This helped me maintain focus and productivity, ensuring each day brought me closer to my goals. The importance of a detailed action plan became even clearer when I decided to change careers. I was dissatisfied with my job and wanted to move into a completely different field. This was a big goal and seemed daunting at first. But by breaking the goal into smaller targets and creating a detailed plan, the transition became much more manageable. First, I identified the new field I wanted to work in and started researching it. Then, I made a list of the skills and qualifications needed and set targets to acquire those skills. I enrolled in courses, attended workshops, and sought practical experiences. Each step was carefully planned and executed, and eventually, I managed to transition to the new career. Creating an action plan not only makes it easier to achieve big goals, but also increases confidence and a sense of control. When you know exactly what needs to be done and have a plan to get there, anxiety and uncertainty diminish. You feel more prepared and capable of facing challenges. Remember, an action plan is a dynamic tool. It's something you should review and adjust as you progress toward your goals. And above all, keep moving. Consistency is key. Each small step counts, and each step brings you closer to your ultimate goal. Chapter 7. Nobody owes you anything, and you don't owe anything to anyone. Throughout my journey of self-discovery and transformation, I realized that one of the most subtle and persistent barriers to personal growth is the expectation that others will do something for us or the feeling that we owe something to someone. This mentality can trap us in a cycle of dependence and resentment, preventing us from living authentically and on our own terms. It was a difficult lesson to learn, but incredibly liberating. Nobody owes you anything, and you don't owe anything to anyone. I remember how I used to expect people around me to help me achieve my goals. I expected my boss to recognize and promote me without me having to make an effort to demonstrate my value. I believed that my friends and family would always be available to support me unconditionally, even when I didn't do the same for them. This mentality led to countless frustrations and disappointments. One day, I was complaining to my dad about how things weren't going well at work and how it seemed no one recognized me. That man, with all the honesty and love in the world, said, "Have you ever thought that maybe no one owes you anything? That people are busy dealing with their own lives, and that if you want something, you need to fight for it yourself. I know what you might be thinking, and he never taught you this before." I believe, in his way, he tried to teach me, but I simply wasn't ready to absorb it. Thanks, Dad. It was a hard truth to swallow, but at that moment, it was exactly what I needed to hear. I started reflecting on how I was putting my happiness and success in the hands of others, expecting them to provide me with opportunities and recognition. I realized that this mentality was a way of outsourcing the responsibility for my own life. I decided to adopt a different approach. I took full responsibility for my success and happiness. If I wanted a promotion, I needed to show my value and go beyond expectations. If I wanted support, I needed to build strong and reciprocal relationships. I stopped waiting for the world to give me something and started actively seeking what I wanted. This change in mentality was transformative. At work, instead of waiting for recognition, I began taking initiatives and standing out in important projects. It didn't take long for my effort to be noticed, and soon I got the promotion I had wanted so much. But more important than the promotion was the sense of achievement and self-sufficiency that came with it. I no longer depended on external recognition to feel good about myself. In my personal life, this new perspective also worked wonders. I learned to value more the truly reciprocal relationships and not feel indebted to those who didn't contribute significantly to my life. This didn't mean being selfish or insensitive, but rather recognizing that I didn't need to carry the weight of others' expectations. I understood that we often feel obligated to others, whether because of family ties, old friendships, or social expectations. This sense of debt can prevent us from following our own dreams and living according to our values. It's essential to establish healthy boundaries and remember that, just as no one owes us anything, we don't owe anything to anyone beyond basic respect and consideration. Of course, this doesn't mean we should become isolated islands without helping or being helped. The key is to find a healthy balance where our actions are guided by a genuine desire to contribute, not by a sense of obligation or debt. When we help because we truly want to and not because we feel we must, our relationships become more authentic and rewarding. One of the stories that best exemplifies this change in mentality was when I decided to start my own business. I'd always dreamed of opening a small cafe, a cozy place where people could gather and enjoy good conversations and excellent coffee. However, I was waiting for someone to come and tell me it was the right time, or for an investor to magically appear to fund my idea. It was only when I realized that no one would do this for me that I took the initiative. I started saving aggressively, cutting unnecessary expenses, and looking for creative ways to fund my dream. I asked for advice from other entrepreneurs, studied the market, and worked hard to turn my vision into reality. In the end, I managed to open my cafe, and the feeling of having accomplished something on my own, without depending on favors or recognition, was incomparable. Throughout this journey, I learned the importance of being authentic and true to myself. There's nothing wrong with wanting to please others, but it shouldn't come at the cost of our own happiness and integrity. We must live our lives according to our own values and dreams, not in accordance with others' expectations. If you're reading this and feel stuck in others' expectations or waiting for someone to come and solve your problems, I encourage you to reflect on this mentality. Ask yourself what you really want and what you can do today, with the resources you have, to start moving towards your dreams. Remember that nobody owes you anything, just as you don't owe anything to anyone. Your life is yours, and the responsibility for it is in your hands. Living on our own terms can be challenging, especially when we are surrounded by social and cultural expectations. However, it's the only way to achieve a true sense of fulfillment and happiness. The journey can be difficult and lonely at times, but every step we take toward our authenticity is worth it. The freedom to live on our own terms and the strength to pursue our dreams without waiting for favors or feeling indebted is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. The road may be arduous, but it's through it that we find our true selves and the life we genuinely want to live. Lastly, but not least, conclusion. Looking back and reflecting on this journey of transformation, I'm amazed by the amount of growth and learning I've experienced. From that first step of accepting responsibility for my own life to the liberation from others' expectations, each stage was essential in becoming the protagonist of my story. Throughout this book, I've shared my experiences, insights, and strategies that helped me achieve my goals and live on my own terms. Now, I want to recap these points and leave you with an inspiring message to continue on your path of self-discovery and personal fulfillment. It all started with the understanding that a better life doesn't fall from the sky. I had to realize that for positive changes to occur, I needed to break free from inertia and start moving. This was the first crucial step, recognizing that the responsibility for my life was in my own hands. I stopped waiting for something magical to happen and began taking concrete actions, even small ones, to move toward my dreams. I learned that consistency is fundamental and that every small step taken daily counts. I realized that blaming others or external circumstances for my problems would get me nowhere. It was when I took responsibility for my choices and actions that I began to see real changes. I understood that if I wanted a better life, I needed to be honest with myself about where I was and what I needed to do to get where I wanted to be. This gave me a sense of power and control I had never felt before. Along the way, I discovered the importance of turning vague dreams into clear and achievable goals. I reflected on what I really wanted in life and broke these dreams into specific targets. This process of introspection and planning was crucial in giving shape to my desires and making them tangible. I learned the importance of setting deadlines and creating a schedule to track my progress. Each small goal achieved brought me closer to my bigger dream, and that motivated me to keep going. Breaking big goals into smaller targets was a strategy that made the process immensely easier. By doing this, I made my goals less intimidating and more manageable. Every small victory gave me the confidence needed to keep moving forward and face the next challenge. This approach also helped me monitor my progress more effectively and adjust my strategies as needed. Creating a detailed action plan was the next essential step. An action plan is like a map guiding our daily actions and keeping us on the right track. By defining specific steps and realistic deadlines, I could turn my goals into concrete and achievable tasks. This not only helped me maintain focus, but also deal with obstacles and unforeseen events along the way. Flexibility and adaptation were key to maintaining progress, even in the face of unexpected challenges. Finally, I freed myself from the mentality that the world owed me something. I understood that nobody is obliged to fulfill my dreams for me, and that I owe nothing to anyone besides basic respect and consideration. This gave me the freedom to follow my own terms and live according to my values and desires. I stopped waiting for favors and started acting with independence and authenticity. This mentality allowed me to build a life that truly reflected who I am and what I want. Now, as I conclude this journey, I want to leave an inspiring message for you. Being the protagonist of your own life is a daily choice. No matter where you are now or the challenges you face, there's always an opportunity to change and grow. Every small step you take towards your goals counts. Action and personal responsibility are the keys to transformation. Remember that life is a series of choices. You have the power to choose how to react to circumstances, how to spend your time and energy, and how to pursue your dreams. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Take the reins of your life and move forward with determination and courage. Be honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to go, and be willing to do the necessary work to achieve your goals. Don't forget to celebrate your victories, no matter how small. Every step taken towards your dream is an achievement and deserves to be recognized. Use these small victories as fuel to keep moving forward. And above all, stay true to yourself. Live according to your values and desires, and don't let others' expectations dictate your life. The journey to becoming the protagonist of your own life isn't easy, but it's incredibly rewarding. By taking action and assuming responsibility for your life, you'll discover a sense of freedom and fulfillment that is unmatched. Keep moving, keep growing, and never stop believing in your potential. Let's go together, because the journey of life is continuous and full of possibilities. You have the power to create the life you want, and it all starts with a decision to be the protagonist of your own story. May this book serve as a guide and inspiration for you, and may each page read bring you closer to living the life you deserve. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. Remember, the power is in your hands. Go ahead and create the life you've always dreamed of. The adventure is just beginning, and I can't wait to see where it takes you.